Yo.
You ready?
Yeah. Okay, so this is the crash course in cyanotype. This is a historic photo process dating back to the mid-1800s, and in this demonstration I'm going to show you the step-by-step process of mixing your chemicals, coating your paper, creating digital negatives, and then actually exposing your paper. This is a very easy process once you get the hang of it, but I have definitely made my fair share of mistakes, and hopefully I can help you so that you won't have to deal with this. Okay, to begin, when you receive your package of cyanotype solution, you should receive it in two bottles, part A and B, part A being potassium ferrocyanide, and part B being ferric ammonium citrate. Now what you're going to want to do is mix them equal parts, and how I usually do that is I just simply pour the solution into each other's caps, and that gives about an equal measurement. Put them together into a glass, and then you're going to want to mix them together. Now while you're mixing, this gives you plenty of time to kind of think about the different papers you like to coat. Fiber papers work well, printmaking papers, as well as watercolor paper. Now what you want to do is go into subdued light and just kind of paint it evenly onto the canvas. You don't need to use a lot, a little goes a long way, and then when you're done you just want to kind of hang them up and let them dry. 20 minutes works best, and make sure to do that in total darkness. Okay, so while those dry, we're going to take some time to make some digital negatives. We're going to be printing these on transparency paper. You can order them online, but I've been able to find some at thrift stores for relatively cheap prices, and they work just as good. But if you are looking for some online, I would recommend these Babs waterproof transparencies, and they work really great when printing from Photoshop. So we're going to hop into there, and I'm going to show you how to make a digital negative. Okay, so I've now opened my photograph into Photoshop, and this is the image that we're going to be making into a digital negative. Now before I do that, we are making kind of a smaller 5x7 print, so I'm just going to scale this down a little bit, and when scaling down I like to use bicubic sharper. Okay, and now what we're going to do is turn it actually into a negative. So we're going to go up to image, come down to adjustments, and then just select invert. Now what we've seen here is it's made almost a perfect photo negative. However, I find that when you just convert it, you start to lose a little bit of this tonality that was in the original image. So what I like to do just real fast to kind of fix that is just make a curves adjustment and just kind of bring this down a little bit deeper, just so that we still have our areas of tonality up in here, and areas that we want to make sure stay white, and areas that have that deep black we want light to pass through there. So just gonna make that little adjustment, and that should be good. So what we're gonna go do is now go to print. Now make sure to select Photoshop manages colors, normal printing and perceptual as always, but go to print settings, and what you're gonna want to do here is select photo paper plus semi-gloss. Any semi-gloss media type will work because the actual transparency paper will have a slight texture. It's almost kind of like a luster paper. Now I'm using 8.5 by 11 sheets, but transparency papers come in many different sizes, so select whichever one you're using. Always select high, and then this should be good to print. So we're just going to go through this, and we'll be able to take this into the actual darkroom and make our cyanotype print. Okay, so once you've finally printed your digital negative, you will be able to take this latent image that is on the transparency film, and you'll be able to take this into the darkroom with your treated paper, and we can begin getting started on using the exposure unit to make your print. I know that it may sound daunting working with an exposure unit. However, I can assure you that working with this will grant you a layer of consistency that will really make it easier for making an addition of work if you're planning to use the cyanotype. Now as you can see, I have the treated paper where the chemical has fully dried onto the paper, and as you can see that the way that the light box is arranged, the UV light tubes are underneath, which means that you're actually going to be layering the paper down, facing towards those UV. So what I'm doing now is I'm layering the negative down, and I'm putting the actual piece of paper that's treated on top of it, and I'm making sure that it's straight before closing up the UV box. Now what you're going to want to do is really tighten this thing down because it is a pressurized vacuum. And now before we actually seal it, we're going to layer some textbooks on top of it. This just makes it so that your negative and your print are very snug together. Then you're going to want to select the vacuum button, and then we're going to expose this print for about 5 minutes. But this is a natural process, and you might even like making them outside better. So I'm just going to show you how I like to make them when I'm using natural UV. What I've done today is I've gone out with a little bit of paper that I've treated like we have in the studio, but I'm going to have it taped down to a bit of cardboard, and I'm going to layer a negative over top of it, and I'm going to put a piece of glass over top as well to keep it tight. Now I exposed for about 7 minutes in direct sunlight, but due to light you could do it for up to 20 minutes. So we just finished exposing. We're going to pull off the books. Now what you definitely want to do, you want to turn the vacuum off first before opening this. And again, be very careful when opening because you do not want to damage the glass. Exposed image here and coming close, because what you should be able to see from your exposure, you should see somewhat of a latent image where light passed through the areas of transparency and got blocked out by the areas of darkness. So we're going to move over to the sink. We're going to wash it out. We're now going to wash this out. Now you want to wash this incredibly thoroughly. You want to make sure to get all of the chemistry washed out of the image, because it will keep exposing past this point. So we're going to use cold water, as cold as you can possibly make it, and we're going to wash it out, and you should be able to see the image come in. So areas that are yellow will start to turn white, and you can tell that the washing process, if you need to wash it further, if the water comes out blue and or yellow, you want to just keep washing until all of that turns to a nice white tone. And again, these are fibrous papers, so the chemistry wants to soak in. You want to wash the back of it as well to make sure that you're not letting any of that chemistry get trapped in the paper. And wash, 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 and overwash as much as possible, because if you don't, it'll start to, as it drip dries, it'll start to expose and you'll get stains. But this should be about good in terms of washing it right there. We can see our image has really come through. And that should be good. Now you could just let this dry and it will get more and more contrasted, or you can speed up the process by using just hydrogen peroxide. So if we look here, we see how contrasty it is now. Once we add the hydrogen, it immediately tones that image to be very, very high contrasty. And I let that kind of sit for a little bit. Whoops. And then just kind of wash off the excess hydrogen peroxide. Once you've done that, you are pretty much done with the overall process. You want to just let this dry. And that's the process from start to finish. So by the end of this, you should be able to have a nice print that you can be able to display up on the wall.